I think we've surpassed the 1/3 mark of the session, so that's something. It was a busy week, so let's get into what went down and what's coming up. He's Nate, and I'm Andrew. This is the DLC's Policy Corner.
Budget discussions are continuing in social services, and voting will begin on Monday. Our comments on what we're concerned about will be on the website, which we'll share at the end. That said, the chairs did put out a proposed cut list, removing most of the really bad stuff, like the DSPD cuts. That said, they do have a few items on their list that they acknowledge would be detrimental. One of them is a cut to all the funding the state provides to counties for behavioral health. Given that the behavioral health system is already underfunded, this would be devastating. We'll let you know what happens with the final list next week. And also remember that Monday is the last day for public comment, so sign up as soon as possible if you want to do that.
In other budget news, we are submitting comments to the Economic and Community Development Appropriations Committee on the governor's request for funding for the proposed homeless campus. Those will also be on the website. Relatedly, Senator Escamilla has a bill on the proposed campus, SB 239, State Homeless Campus Amendments. This bill adds some compliance requirements for when the campus gets built. Given that we don't know if or when the campus will get funded, we'll keep an eye on this bill and keep you updated.
We also had a bill introduced that adds some requirements around the implementation of H.R. 1, the federal legislation we've talked about all summer that made cuts to Medicaid. The bill is HB 471, Social Services Amendments from Representative Monson. There's a lot to be concerned about in this bill, particularly that it is a rather strict interpretation of the work requirements in H.R. 1, going beyond what is required in federal legislation. This could lead to more folks losing access to Medicaid. We will work with our partners on the Protect Medicaid Coalition and talking to the sponsor and working on the bill.
Finally, we have a bill from Representative Lou Bay, HB 472, Division of Licensing and Background Check Amendments. The bill is largely a cleanup bill, but it makes a change to the definition of an individual associated with a licensee. That sounds like not much, but there has been a problem where certain providers of disability services have lost their license and then reopened days later by using a family member, hiring the same staff, keeping the same clients, and even hiring the person who lost their license. This has been a real harm to people with disabilities, and we're glad Representative Lou Bay is trying to close the loophole.
Well, we buried the lead a bit, as we're known to do. The big bill that came up in committee this week was SJR 7 from Senator Weiler. As you likely know, this is the resolution that urges the governor to remove our designation as the Protection and Advocacy Agency for the state of Utah. The bill passed out of committee and is on to the Senate floor. It would be hard to understate how hard that hearing was for us.
It's clear the legislation stems directly from our advocacy around SB 199 from last session, the bill that created a restrictive guardianship for those with severe intellectual disabilities. Unfortunately, the parents behind that bill have come forward to spread misinformation about our organization, and the committee gave us very little time to respond. We very much appreciate everyone who came to support us, and we won't stop our fight against the bill. We will keep you updated on how you can help, and we appreciate your continued support.
In addition, given that we were not given time to address the allegations against us, we want to take a moment to do that. The claim is that we don't represent or help those with severe intellectual disabilities because we didn't support this bill, and we don't represent parents in guardianship proceedings. We could provide you dozens of things we've done to work on behalf of those individuals, but some examples include investigations that found abuse and neglect at the State Developmental Center that were substantiated by federal regulators. We advocated for students with the most significant disabilities subjected to restraint and seclusion in schools. And we advocated for those with medically complex conditions to have access to community-based services through a federal civil rights complaint.
To be clear, we cannot provide representation to parents in guardianship cases because we are prohibited by federal law, and it would present a conflict of interest for us. as we're tasked with representing people with disabilities and not advocating against them. So we reject the allegations against us and want to give a shout out to all of our colleagues who we know do amazing work on behalf of Utahns with disabilities. Our attorneys and advocates work very hard and have dedicated much of their lives to this work. We know they represent the interests of people with disabilities in Utah, and we think the legislature should celebrate them instead of disparaging them.
Well, that's already a lot. So we'll wrap it up there. As you know, you can find the bill tracker, budget tracker, calendar, and any comments on our website, disabilitylawcenter.org/issue/public-policy. Thanks again for all those who supported us this week. Cannot thank you enough, and we will see you next. Thank you so much for watching.